Hello and welcome to another video. In today's episode we are going to take a look at QEMU, which is kind of a virtual machine software for Linux in the command line. And we will boot our Arch Linux Live ISO in that virtual machine as a kind of an experiment which we will use in the future to learn more about the Arch Linux installation procedure. So in today's video I am going to talk about QEMU and OVMF, where OVMF is an open source implementation of the UEFI standards for the virtual machine. So I will tell you what packages you need to install. We will validate our Arch Linux ISO, create a hard drive image for our virtual machine, and we will start up this virtual machine in both the BIOS mode and the UEFI mode. So what is QEMU? So QEMU is generic and open source machine emulator and virtualizer. So it will be used to run operating systems and programs made for one machine or another on a different kind of machine. And so it can use also as a virtualizer to use to run a guest code directly on the host CPU. This is kind of a lightweight and very fast virtual machine, and it's fully open source and fully so it's a free software. And so if we go to the QEMU page on the ArchWiki, there is here a section for graphical front ends, and you can use libvirt to provide a convenient way to manage the virtual machines, because QEMU in itself does not provide a graphical interface to manage virtual machines. So you have to always invoke the command with the appropriate parameters. You cannot really save the virtual machines themselves. Of course, the hard drive images will be saved. So that we could use some more user-friendly interface, but I was thinking that in the beginning we should use as less abstraction as possible, so we can just use the software as it is in the bare bones way to get to know its capabilities a little more, capabilities and limitations. And the other thing we will take a look at is OVMF, which is to enable UEFI support for virtual machines. It contains a sample UEFI firmware for QEMU. And so this is what we are going to take a look at. So first things first, we will have to install a few packages here. So we will need to install the QEMU and the OVMF packages. In Arch Linux, these are both in the binary repositories, so you can just use pacman to get them. And if we go to our console here, we can just type sudo pacman -S the first QEMU and then OVMF. So I always screw up the order of the letters in this. So of course I have already installed this, so I won't install it. So I will just press N, you press Y and install these packages. And so if we have these, then we can go and get the Arch Linux ISO. So that should be our next step to download it. I of course already downloaded it. It's on the archlinux.org/download page, and it is suggested that you download the PGP signature directly from this page here, and you download the ISO image from a mirror somewhere. So I have both, so I can tell you, I can show you that I have the Arch Linux ISO and I have the Arch Linux ISO signature here, and we can use pacman to verify this signature as according to the Arch Linux installation procedures. So this is from the installation guide. There are these pre-installation steps like verifying the signature. Of course, if you are not using Arch Linux because you are trying to get to know Arch Linux, then you will have to use some other method, for example, the GPG or some other method there. There are verification software even for Windows. You can find those too. So if I just wanna use pacman, then I just type in pacman key -v arch linux iso.6. So I just use the tab completion here because it's a long file name, and then pacman will invoke the required things, and it will tell you that a good signature. And if you want to use some other method on the Arch Linux download page, you can find the MD5 and SH1 hashes for it, so you can use these also to verify your Arch Linux image. Okay, so our next step in this is going to be create a new hard drive image. So of course, if you want to install Arch Linux in a virtual machine, first your virtual machine will need to have a hard drive. And so to create a hard drive image, we will invoke the QEMU-img create command, which is for creating new images. So let's switch to our console here, and we will create a new image. So QEMU-img space create, and with the -f we can tell what the format will be, and this will be QCOW2. So if you want to know what QCOW2 is, you can check it on the Arch Wiki page or on the QEMU homepage. So basically here we have, like at the Arch Linux Wiki, we have the creating hard disk image section, and it will tell you that you can use the raw image where it basically the disk image file will take up as much data as big your disk image should be. So if you create a 4 GB virtual drive for your virtual machine, that file on your computer will take up 4 GB, but with QCOW, which is a shorthand for quick copy on write, it will take up less space, and QCOW2 format can be used for in a more kind of flexible way than the raw format. So that's why we are going to use the QCOW format in our case, and we will create a disk_img.qcow, and then we give it a size. So I just give it 10G. We will create a 10 GB virtual drive. So now we got some response. It's formatted in a QCOW2 format, and it gives us some more information about the disk image. Let's just check our directory here. So now we have this disk image.qcow here, and you can see it's much smaller than 10 GB as a file. So that is good. So next we will start our virtual machine with a regular BIOS, and to do that we will have to invoke this QEMU system x86-64 command, and we will also have to specify the memory size for our virtual machine with -m switch, and we will use the -hda to add one hard disk image and -cd-rom to add a CD image, and then we will add -bootd to boot the CD image out of all these disks. And then we will, inside the virtual machine, we will check if we have an EFI system or we don't. So in this case we should not have an EFI system. So let's invoke QEMU in our QEMU-system-x86 underscore 64, and then we say -m, let's give it 2 gigabytes, and -hda disk img.qcow, and then -cd-rom, and then we will give the Arch Linux ISO, and then also we will add -boot d and press enter. And so if you did this, then the QEMU window will appear for you, which is this virtual machine window. And now let's just click inside it. Now my mouse disappeared. I have to press Ctrl-Alt-G for grabbing to get back my mouse in my host machine. But let's boot Arch Linux here. So it is booting the virtual disk image in the virtual machine, and let's just wait until it loads. I will pause the recording so you don't have to look at me watching this slowly loading virtual machine. Okay, so the virtual machine is almost fully loaded. You can see that the window resized itself for some reason. I am not exactly sure what's the reason. It's probably just systemd switched resolution, and because, you know, it is a virtual machine, so the QEMU just resized itself. There are options in the QEMU window to change the window size and force resizing, downsizing, or upsizing the contents of this image, but I'm not going to do that. So what I told you, that I am going to check my what is it called, for my EFI variables here. So we will use the ls/ I have to check back for this. So let's see, sys firmware EFI. So sys/firmware/EFI/EFI vars. So there is no such file or directory. So what we're doing here is that in the sys directory, there are all these things like firmware and devices and dev and kernel and module and power, this kind of representations of things in our system. And if we go to sys/firmware, then inside this there is the representation of our firmware in kind of file formats. You don't need to boot your live ISO for this. You can check it on your real system. I think you need to have root privileges for that. But anyways, we can see that there is no EFI here, which means this system has not booted with EFI, which is what we expect from the QEMU to do without any specified BIOS firmware. So let's just power off now, or shut down now, maybe that's what I should say. Okay, so now we can see that our virtual machine is shutting down, and so we did this. Next is we are going to start our virtual machine with UEFI established. So we need to check first that where did exactly our Pacman install the OVMF virtual BIOS. So that's what we are going to do. We are going to issue pacman-ql. So if you don't remember, capital Q and lowercase l is listing the files owned by a package. So ql, and it is OVMF. I am sorry, OVMF. So we can see that these are the files and directory is owned by OVMF, and I need to check in the web. I found in this Stack Exchange post that you need an FD file to run. This FD file contains the firmware image. So let's just check. In our console we have OVMF code and OVMF vars. So I guess we need OVMF code, so that's what we are going to load. And we need to use the -BIOS command, or rather parameter, to specify this. So let's go back to our command. So you can just basically type exactly the same command that we typed back later. So I just went back with the up arrow in my bash history, and now I can say -BIOS /usr/share /ovmf x64/ovmf _code.fd, and now I press enter, and Tianocore. So this is Tianocore is what is our UEFI image for the virtual machine's virtual firmware. So now we are expected to load Arch Linux ISO in the virtual machine with the UEFI activated. So this will take some time until it boots up. So I will again pause the video for you, so you don't have to watch me looking at all this text scrolling through. Or maybe you should look at me. No, I'll just pause and come back to you when it's loaded. Okay, so we are back as QEMU has loaded up. Well, it's still waiting for the automatic login, but there is only one thing we are left here with, is listing sys firmware EFI and EFI variables, and here they are, because now we are in an EFI system. So if I go back, just list what's in firmware, you can see that we have the EFI directory there, and in the EFI directory we have config table, EFI vars, FW platform size, etc. So this virtual machine is now running with a EFI enabled. So let's just shut down our virtual machine and call it a day. So thank you for watching. We went through how to start a virtual machine in the QEMU, which is the smallest emulator possible for Arch Linux, and it is, you can see it kind of complicated, but once you just want to do these very simple tasks, it's not that difficult, and it has a very powerful command line interface, which you can check out the homepage for QEMU for more information. They have a very long and lengthy and verbose manual for this software, so there you can find all the capabilities that this virtual machine has. And if you are interested, you can just search QEMU on the web and you will find applications for it. It is a very interesting piece of software. I hope you can get interested in it, and you will play with it a little. And we will use this QEMU for my next videos, when we are going through the Arch installation procedure step by step, not just following the commands from the wiki, but also understanding them. So this is the next project we are doing here on Nice Micro's fight against Arch Linux. Now that I'm not that big a noob that I was when I started these videos, I hope I can clarify some things better If you like this video, why don't you press the thumbs up, and if you are interested in this series, subscribe to the channel. If you want to see my previous videos, you can check out the playlist of my Linux videos here, or check out the next episode if you are watching this in the future, and tell me in the comments what other topics you want to hear about and what experience you have with virtual machines and Arch Linux installation. And I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.